Hello friends, welcome to the elite class. Today we're going to study a new topic, that is the nature of culture, and this is topic number 2.1 of paper 1 of anthropology. Let's get started. Starting with the concept of culture. You must have heard about the different definitions of the culture. Sometimes we define culture as sum total of all group habits that have been developed by a person. We can also define culture as the ideas, the customs and the social behavior of a particular people or the society. There have been a number of definitions given by different anthropologists about the culture. Now we will discuss few of them. Let's get started with the first, that is given by E.B. Tylor. E.B. Tylor is an anthropologist and he defined culture as a social heritage which is given by the society to its members. So simply he defined culture as a social heritage which is given to its members by the society, and that means that each member of the society is given this heritage and they have to move forward it to generations after generations. So this social heritage is actually a complex full of knowledge, the belief, art, moral, laws, customs and every habit that has been acquired by the man as a member of that society. Now the second definition was by the Malinowski. According to the Malinowski, he defined that culture can be divided as into the material and non-material and shaped or the shapeless. He defined that whatever the culture is, whatever the social heritage is, we can define it into two terms, that is material, non-material and shaped or the shapeless ones. Now, what actually the two aspects of the culture define? The materialistic ones define, now materialistic things like house. House is a materialistic thing. TV is a materialistic thing. We can also have the various means of communications like block carts, like buses, planes nowadays, and also clothing, the weaponry used by the people. So this is the materialistic aspect of the society. Now if we have to talk about the non-materialistic aspect, what it can be? These can be the customs, the traditions, the laws, the morals. These all things are the non-materialistic things. Fine. Now moving forward to the definition given by the Herskowitz. Now what Herskowitz said, according to him, culture is a man-made part of the environment. And according to him, environment is of two types. First is natural environment, second is the social environment. And social environment defines our culture of a man. So whatever materialistic and non-material things are learned by the man, that represents its culture, and these materialistic and non-materialistic things forms its social environment. That is why the social environment defines the culture of a man. Moving forward to the Leslie Whyte, according to him, defines the symbolizing as ability to originate and bestow the meaning upon a thing and ability to grasp and appreciate such meaning. According to the Whyte, he said that whenever there is a means of symbolization in a society, that this symbol system, it originates upon certain things and give a ability to the members of the society to grasp certain things and appreciate the meaning of certain things by symbolizing. So this is the definition given by Leslie Whyte about the culture. Moving forward to the definition given by the Robert Redfield. According to the Robert Redfield, culture is defined as a sum total of conventional method that has been embodied in the artifacts of the society, what is the social structure of that society, and the symbols used by the society. Whatever is embodied in them, the sum total of all these will define the culture of that society. That is said by the Robert Redfield. Now defining about the functional view of culture. What is the functional view of culture? What can be defined as the functional view of the culture? So The functional view is simply that it gives us the instrumental and humanistic definition of culture. This functional view is given by the two anthropologists. First is the Malinowski and second is the Robert Brown. According to the Malinowski, he simply said that culture is simply of the function to satisfy the needs of person, and this culture acts as an instrument for that. So culture is simply an instrument for satisfying the needs of a man in a society. And according to the Robert Brown, he said that culture is simply a social heritage with which we perpetuate our social life. So the two has a different take on the same topic. That is, according to him, culture is simply an instrument to satisfy the needs, and in Robert Brown's opinion, it's a social heritage to perpetuate our social life. That's it. So this is the different way, the functional views of the culture. Now, as far as we are concerned about the definition of culture, there is no unanimity as far as the definition is concerned. The anthropologists differ in their opinions on that. Now, according to Beals and Heuser, so it was Beals and Heuser who in their work An Introduction to Anthropology have suggested certain measures or certain definitions for which we can use the term culture. And these suggestions include, first, to the way of life for living a common at any one time to all the mankind. That means that way of life which is common to all for a particular period of time, we can say that way of life is at their culture. Now, also to the way of living peculiar to a group of society between which there is a greater or lesser interaction. That means that way of living which is peculiar to that group of society, we can say that defines the culture of that society. Or there are certain patterns which are very much peculiar to a society, so that behavior, that patterns are also defining the culture of that society. Moving forward to the parts of culture. Now we say that in every culture we come across a structure, and that structure is simply to organize the smaller units within a society. These are the smaller units when we organize them, so they form a structure. Now what for we have maintained that structure? There has to be some need, so as to maintain equilibrium. So this equilibrium is maintained and the culture has been divided into the number of parts. This is the cultural traits, culture complex, culture pattern. Now we will discuss them one by one. So starting with the cultural traits, we say that the smallest and the indivisible unit of culture is the cultural traits. So beyond cultural traits we cannot divide culture. These are the smallest and indivisible units, and their cultural traits are materialistic as well as non-materialistic. The materialistic ones include the TV, house, and non-material ones include symbols, words, and many more. You can also add the clothing as a materialistic thing, and in the non-material you can add the customs, traditions. So these all include the cultural traits. Moving forward to the culture complex. The culture complex is simply the organization of the different cultural traits together. When we organize the different cultural traits together, they will form a complex. For instance, we can say the different religions they have. For example, India. We take an example of India. Is India a culture complex? So the answer to this is yes. India is a culture complex. There are number of cultures living together in an area and forming a country called India. So different culture traits, they are forming an organization we simply call India here, and this is forming a culture complex. So yes, India is a culture complex because different cultures live here together. Moving towards the culture pattern. When we have different culture complexes living together, a number of culture complexes together, they form the culture patterns. So for example, the culture pattern of the Gandhism, that's an Indian culture pattern, fine. Or we have the joint family system, that is also a culture pattern, the joint family system. So this includes the religion thing, like different rituals, They are the culture complex, the different rituals and all. But in the culture patterns, we have the joint family system, we have the caste system. That is also part of the culture pattern that has been practiced in India. Moving forward to the characteristics of culture. So, defining few of them. First is the culture is learned. What do we mean by it? Is culture biologically transmitted? So the answer to this question is no. Is it instinctive thing within a person? No, it is not. So it is simply something we learn through the social interactions. When we interact socially in our society, so there are few customs, traditions, and the morals that we took up from them, and that is how we learn the culture. So that is why we say the culture is learned. The second thing being the culture is social. That means human can learn only culture within the society. The different ideas they share, the cultural knowledge, the beliefs that are shared within a society, that is making the culture as the social thing. The next being inculcated. That is, culture is not something which remains restricted to a particular person or a society. It can be inculcated with the time, it can be transmitted. The habits within a society that defines their culture can be transmitted to another society or their children's also, by inculcating these all traditions, knowledge, beliefs within them. It is adaptive. Now, simply, it's a major way. For instance, we're living in an environment and we want to get adapted to that particular environment. So the first thing is that to acquire the knowledge of that particular environment, and that knowledge is depicting the culture of that particular environment. So in order to adapt in that particular environment, the first thing we need to do is to adapt ourselves. So it's very easy to adapt in there when you took up the things which are very relative in that particular environment, and which will help you to sustain in that environment. So definitely you will become adaptive. So that particular thing is culture which you need to adapt in the environment. Third is the structured. That means a culture in a particular place is having a definite structure. For example, if we talk about the marriages, so in different religions, marriage has a different definite structure. So their culture is different. For example, in Hindus, the marriage tradition is different. In Muslims, it's different. So a particular structure is being followed for that particular culture. It's a part of culture. So a particular structure is defined for that. Then we have that it is ideational. That means culture is based on ideas. Whatever are the ideas, whatever norms, whatever ideals the member of the society are following, so definitely this become the ideology of their culture. Culture is stable and dynamic, and at one time culture is stable, so in a place it is stable, but it is dynamic. With the change in the society, it keeps on changing with that and is stable for that particular society. For instance, before globalization, the marriages are very sacred, and it has been a very pious tie which considered by every person. But after globalization, nowadays you can see, if you are not compatible with the person, the marriages are easily broken by divorces, and divorces are very frequent these days. So it's divorces being frequent these days is depicting the dynamic nature of the culture, because the marriages are a part of culture, and how dynamically they have changed to the frequent divorces right now. So this is how this has been showing its dynamic nature. Now the culture is integrative as well, because it teaches us how to be mutually adjustable in a particular environment. Culture is gratifying also, as it fulfills our biological and other secondary needs. So that is why we can say that it is gratifying. These are few characteristics of the culture. You can add more also. Moving forward to the concept of civilization. Now, what do we mean by a civilization? It is a complex society characterized by the urban development, social stratification imposed by either by the cultural elites or by the symbolic systems of communication, and perceived separation from domination over the natural environment. This is a complex society which has urbanly developed. There has been social stratification included, and this social stratification was imposed by the cultural elite, the various symbol systems, like we have in the writing systems some particular books which have included the stratification, like we know the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras. So this is depicted in a particular writing system. Civilization, in a very easy language we can say, it's a stage of human social development and organization which is considered most advanced. What is the most advanced organization of the social development? That we can consider as the civilization. So moving forward, we have the different approach to study the civilizations. The first approach being the sociolinguistic approach. This is the first approach, and this approach is simply defined by L.H. Morgan in his book Ancient Society, and he described the evolution of entire society. That the evolution starts from the savagery to barbarism and then to the civilization. He simply explained the evolution from savagery to barbarity and then to the civilization presently. Now we'll discuss them one by one. In the savagery, we'll see that what actually their organization is, the characteristics at that time. So the civilization at the savagery time, they were hunting and gathering organizations. They live a nomadic life, so they have no idea about any territorial regard or not. They are not there to have any territorial control or anything like that. They live a very nomadic life. There is no community at all, because if there is no territorial regard in them, so definitely they're not being aware about the community lives as well. So they are nomadic and they have a subsistence and below subsistence living. So this is how they live. This is the characteristic of a savagery society. Now when it was a barbarism, so the characteristics are they are cultivators and the domesticators of animal and the plants, and the control of man is on the supply of food. That means they have a community system, and that too a rural community system. When there is a community, so definitely they have a regard for the territorial limits as well, and their economy is quite surplus. Now coming to the civilization, that means the craftsmanship is in them, the invention of the script, you can say, or the metallurgy, that was in them. You can see the Harappan civilization. They have all these scripture, that is the Bostophodon's script in them. They have metal use in them. So that means we can see the craftsmanship was there in this civilization. There was urban revolution. You start to develop into more convenient and comfort lifestyle, and the urban revolution, which was done by V.G. Childe. Then the social stratification was in can be seen in the civilization. You will not find one class of people, you will find different class of people, and you are socially stratified. The population growth is in the civilization. There is a specialization of labor. It is not that you all are doing what is known as hunting and all. So definitely if one is doing hunting, so he is specialized in that, and that's why he is doing that thing. Another is doing ploughing, or is a farmer. So what is specialization of a particular person, the work is given them accordingly. Then the quantification of the achievements is there. That means the technology and the materialistic achievement a particular civilization or a society has, that is also a characteristic of civilization. There's a civil government to control the area for this, so that means the government system is also included in this. And then important thing is the utilitarianism. This is simply accumulation of various utilities so as to make your life more comfortable. That is known as the utilitarianism. Moving forward to the next approach of the studying this civilization, that is the historian view. What historians have been saying. Various historians have made their conclusion about the origins, the growth and the demise of the civilization. For example, you say about the Harappan civilization, they say that civilization have arose near Indus River, and it has grown with the time, spread over to different areas, and its demise is due to the flooding, the various drought and different other things were the reason for the demise of that particular thing. So historians have made certain conclusion based on certain factors. According to the historians, there were 21 civilizations before the Western civilization, what is in the modern Western civilization, before which we have 21 civilizations. And special factors in a geographical region, these special factors are responsible for making or emergence of a civilization. We also are aware about the different civilizations, like we have the Indus Valley civilization, the Egyptian civilization, also the Mesopotamian civilization. So different civilizations come across, and the all societies have some special factors giving emergence to the particular civilizations. Moving forward to the next approach, that is the anthropological approach, comprehending the concept of civilization in contrast to culture. So this anthropological approach is simply contrasting civilization with the culture. We have two ways of concern with civilization, that is meaning of civilization and the content. What is its meaning and what is its content? We describe them one by one now. Moving forward, the meaning of civilization. Civilization is concerned with the three different things. If we have to see now what is its meaning. So this is material culture and its product. What is its materialistic cultures? We have already gave some examples, and what are its products. Then what are the different trends in the technology? So this is also, like we discussed earlier, the quantification of achievement, that's the trend in technology. And then the creation of the different equipment like weaponry and all, this is also material achievement. Now in the content, we have the theory of material and non-materialistic culture that gave rise to the distinction of culture and civilization. For example, you have a particular material in a particular civilization, so this make it distinct in that particular, for that particular society or that particular civilization. According to MacIver, it was said that civilization is what we possess and culture is what we are. That civilization is something what we have possessed over these years and what we actually have. Now culture is what we are right now. What are the habits we are living with currently, that defines our culture, and civilization is what we have possessed over these years, what we possess right now. So this is the difference, an actual difference between civilization and culture that has been given by MacIver. Now civilization is something objective. It is based on certain things. Now, and civilization, we can say culture refers to the difference in values and attitude. For example, we say in the Hindus the marriage system is different, and the Muslims the marriage system is different. It is simply what has been in their customs, what are their values, their attitudes, that has created a difference in their culture. And the this meaning of the civilization is simply referred to as the external outfit also. You can say it's sort of cover of technological trends around which people of the different culture organize their lifestyle. So this is that external outfit around which we organize our lifestyles. Moving to our next topic, that is cultural relativism. Now what is cultural relativism? An anthropological attitude which views that all cultural patterns are equally vivid, and hence every culture should be viewed objectively. Cultural relativism is that every culture has a significant presentation, and every culture should be equally vivid and should be objectively viewed. So we have to say that cultural relativism is simply giving a logic and rational presentation to each and every culture. It's an anthropological attitude. We can define it as like that. There are different features of a cultural relativism. We'll discuss them one by one. Starting with, we cannot judge other cultures by our own standards. For example, a Muslim has their own culture and a Hindu has their own culture. If one practice is acceptable in one religion and is not acceptable in another religion, so we cannot judge them on the basis of their culture, because their tastes, their values, their morals are quite different. They follow the different ideologies, so that can make their choices different. So we cannot judge others' culture based on the standard of one's own religion. This is the first feature of the cultural relativism. Second is, we need to analyze things from its internal consistency and logic. Whenever we are analyzing things, we need to analyze them with more logic. We try to understand why people are doing particular things. What is the reason behind it? They cannot be always illogical. There has to be some logic behind why people are doing certain things. Non-judgmental appreciation of strengths and weaknesses of other cultures and the societies. For instance, certain society have some strengths and there are some weaknesses as well. We need to be non-judgmental about it, whether it will be if we talk about a strength of a society or a weakness of society. We should pose for the neutrality. That means beef eating in non-Hindus and cousin marriage in Islam should be viewed in its own logic. What actually was the logic behind them? Why they are following the particular activities? We need to understand that logic, and if we are not understanding it, at least we should view it through a logic the person practicing that are giving. This is the neutrality posture we need to adopt. Now, what is the significance of cultural relativism? If we will become culturally relative, we'll become tolerant and will prevent the caste, creed, religion, language-based tension and the violence. For instance, the cow vigilantism and all, we say that mob lynching and all, which has been in news every now and then. So this is making people intolerant for each other's religion. If we accept the cultural relativism in our day-to-day basis, definitely will become tolerant for each other religious practices, their norms, and we try to understand why people are doing them, and at least we'll try to be not ignorant, we'll try to just get adapted with what our religion is about and what their religion is about. We will not interfere in each other's religion, their rituals and customs and all. So this cultural relativism acceptance will make us more tolerant, and it will open new vistas of knowledge. We try to learn about new logics, new religions, and it will make us more knowledgeable with the time. And if it is making us tolerant, so definitely the world peace will be prevailing in there. So it is also a significance of the cultural relativism. Moving towards the criticism of cultural relativism, it is used to justify the traditions desired by the dominant and the powerful class. That is why it is criticized, that it is simply to justify the desired traditions of dominant and the powerful class, and it also leads to the human rights violation. For instance, a woman subjected to the mutilation of genitals to become pure and clean. So there has been no question asked. There is a refusal of the questions to be asked for that particular practice, which leads to the human rights violation. And these are the criticisms for the cultural relativism. Moving forward to ethnocentrism. Now, it is defined as the belief that one's own values, their traditions, their customs are better, they are natural, they are correct and preferable than those of the other's culture. So, this is simply thinking about their own religion as very superior. You think your own religion is superior to that of others, and this is what the ethnocentrism is all about. The attitude to evaluate other culture on the basis of one's own standard, this is also how we define the ethnocentrism. What we do, we simply try to analyze, we simply try to gauge others culture by the standards of our own culture, which is not actually the correct way to gauge or to see the other religions. Because if we try to evaluate the others religion or others culture on the basis of our own standards, definitely there will be some flaws and ups and downs in there, because different cultures are quite different, and there are quite various differences in them. So the attitude to evaluate other culture on the basis of your own standards, that defines the ethnocentrism. That ethnism is the culture, the belief you follow. Centrism is being centered towards your own culture only, and you will not you consider your own culture superior to that of others, and you will not respect others culture. This is what ethnocentrism is all about. Now, what are the negatives of ethnocentrism? What are the negatives which include? It includes first the intolerance, the hatred. Because when you are intolerant about others' religion, it creates hatred in between the two cultures, and sometimes which will lead to the violence, as you will see the cow slaughterings. Because for Hindus, it is they consider cow as pious animals for them, but for the Muslims, they slaughter the cows. This is according to their religion. They think that it is according to their belief permissible in their religion to slaughter the cow. So this is creating a difference of the opinion for both the cultures, so which sometimes will lead to the violence as well. It hinders the understanding of others culture. You are not able to understand others culture when you are ethnocentric. So you have to be culturally relative, so that you can understand others culture also and try to understand the logic behind their practices. Ethnocentrism is not only hindering your understanding of your own culture, but also of your own culture as well. Because if you are not understanding others culture, at the same time you are also not understanding your own culture, because nobody's culture is trying to make them intolerant about other cultures, trying to spread the hatred among all. No culture is up to the violence. Every culture is peacekeeping, and if it is only, we need to understand it very clearly, what our culture is talking about and what others culture is talking about. We need to know the logic of others culture and our own culture as well. But when we are ethnocentric, neither we are able to understand our own culture nor we are able to understand others, and it is the basis of the racism. We try to develop it in there, and there are human rights violation and also a disturbed progress. You will see a stalled and a disturbed progress. You will not feel that progress that much. You will feel a disturbance in there. So these are the negatives of the ethnocentrism. So in order to bring peace in a society, be tolerant and very peacekeeping society, and respecting each other's religion is very must, and respecting each other's cultural practices is quite must, and we have to be culturally relative, but we have to avoid being ethnocentric. Now there are two most important topics which are not mentioned in the syllabus, but we need to understand them, that what do we mean by acculturation and also what do we mean by diffusion. Acculturation is simply when there are two societies of the different cultures and they are in contact with each other. So when they are in contact, and this contact result in the changes in one's own culture, and then those changes are quite major. For example, there are two cultures, this is one culture and this is the second culture, and these two cultures are interacting with one another. So if this culture is of this first culture is having a staple food of rice, but when they are interacting, so the second culture has influence on the first culture and their staple food changed from rice to wheat. This is, say for example. So this major change in this first culture due to the influence of second culture, we say that this is acculturation. Talking about diffusion, it is simply passing of certain cultural element from one culture to another culture. There is one element which has passed from one culture to another culture. We say that it is diffusion. Moving forward, the contact in the acculturation, it can be direct or it can be any medium through. That is not a direct contact and indirect contact. But in the diffusion, there is always an indirect contact involved. Now in the acculturation, this it does not exist unless the contact is continuous. That means the two two cultures in contact should be continuously in contact. But in the diffusion, the contact should not be continuous. That means if you come in contact with different cultures at a particular instant, even that is sufficient to diffuse that particular cultural element into another culture. But as far as the acculturation is concerned, the contact should be continuous. The whole of the culture of one society is being replaced by the culture of another society. That means whole culture can be replaced in case of the acculturation, but the whole culture cannot be replaced by diffusion. So this is the difference between the two, and also you have got the concept of acculturation and diffusion. So this is all for today, and with this we completed our 2.1 topic of the paper 1 of anthropology. I hope you have liked the video, and if you have liked it, kindly give it a thumbs up, and please do subscribe to my channel. We'll meet you in the next lecture. Till then, goodbye.